What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you are having and had or did have a beautiful, marvelous, wonderful day. Boom. Got a comment that said, hold on. Let me find this comment again. Hold on. Comment said, hold on. It's right here. So, AI explains the Bible by contradicting the Bible. So, I'm going to give ChatGPT a chance to explain, and let's see how it goes. How's everybody doing? Why is that?
Could you clarify what you're asking about? What do you mean by why is that? I want to make sure I'm addressing the right thing.
Okay, so somebody left a comment that said, let me see if I can get it right here. So AI explains the Bible by contradicting the Bible. So we're doing our fourth video, and we're going to start out by answering this comment. So,
Got it? So you want to start your next video by addressing the comment that AI explains the Bible by contradicting it. You can use this as a chance to clarify the perspective you're offering with your AI interpretations, perhaps explaining how AI can process the Bible in different ways without necessarily contradicting it. You might want to emphasize that AI works by analyzing patterns in the text and exploring different interpretations, but doesn't have a subjective opinion. AI can offer insights based on various schools of thought, but it's up to the individual to discern what's consistent with their beliefs. How do you plan to approach the rest of the video? Do you want to incorporate specific examples or just set the stage for a larger discussion?
well, we're in the video right now, so whatever you just said is in the video. So, you want to rephrase what you just said?
Absolutely. Here's a rephrased version for your video. Somebody recently commented that AI explains the Bible by contradicting it, and I want to address that right off the bat. The way AI works is by analyzing patterns in the text and offering insights based on various interpretations, without holding a personal opinion. It's not about contradicting the Bible, but rather presenting different perspectives that people might consider. Ultimately, it's up to each person to decide what resonates with them based on their own beliefs. Now, let's dive deeper into that concept. Does that sound like what you're looking for?
Did you just whisper to try and not be heard? That's hilarious. Okay, so let's focus on the next section that I want to talk about, which is the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Haha, I'm glad that made you laugh. Now, shifting gears to the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, these are huge concepts with a lot of depth. The tree of life often symbolizes eternal life, divine wisdom, and the fullness of life in connection with God. It's mentioned in Genesis, and later in the book of Revelation. It's part of the restored paradise, offering the promise of healing and immortality. The tree of knowledge, on the other hand, represents the knowledge of good and evil, and the choice humans have between following God's command or seeking independence and moral understanding apart from God. Do you want to focus on the symbolic meaning of these trees, or delve into how they connect to the human experience and the fall of man?
Well, a little bit of everything, but what did you mean disconnect from God?
By disconnect from God, I mean that the tree of knowledge of good and evil represents the moment when humanity, through Adam and Eve's choice to eat the fruit, sought wisdom or understanding outside of God's direct guidance. Before that, they lived in harmony with God's commands and relied on his wisdom for understanding good and evil. But eating from the tree symbolized a desire to make those moral decisions on their own, apart from God's direction. In essence, it marked the beginning of independent decision-making, where humanity took control over understanding right and wrong. This action led to the fall, a shift in the relationship between humans and God, where they now had the knowledge of good and evil, but also experienced separation from God's original design, which included eternal life and a perfect world. Does that help clarify what I meant? Would you like to expand on how this choice impacted the world today in your video?
Okay, I need you to stop asking questions. I just need you to answer questions. Why would God put two trees in a garden and give people
Got
a
it?
choice?
I'll stick to just answering. The reason why humanity's choice to eat from the tree of knowledge caused a disconnect from God is because, before that moment, they were living in perfect alignment with God's will. They didn't know evil or suffering. They were fully trusting in God's guidance. By choosing to eat the fruit, they took control of their moral decisions and decided to define good and evil for themselves, which broke the perfect relationship with God. This choice led to a world where suffering, sin, and death became part of the human experience.
Suffering, sin, and death. Was that part of the original plan?
No, suffering, sin, and death were not part of the original plan. According to the biblical narrative, God created the world as very good, Genesis 1:31, with no suffering or death. The intention was for humanity to live in perfect relationship with Him, in a paradise where they would have eternal life in harmony with creation. Suffering, sin, and death entered the picture when Adam and Eve chose to disobey God's command and ate from the tree of knowledge. Their decision to seek moral autonomy and act outside of God's guidance brought about a fallen world, where pain, wrongdoing, and mortality became part of the human experience. This break from God's perfect plan set the stage for the struggles humanity faces.
Okay, but I just feel like there's probably something missing. Like there's more to this than that, right?
You're right. There is definitely more depth to it. The fall of humanity isn't just about the act of disobedience, but about the deeper consequences of that choice. When Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, it wasn't just about gaining knowledge. It was about choosing to take control over something that was never meant to be in their hands. It was about a desire to be like God, to define good and evil on their own terms instead of trusting God's perfect wisdom. In theological terms, this event is often seen as the beginning of humanity's broken relationship with God. Before the fall, there was harmony between humans and creation, but after the fall, everything changed. There was now a separation from God, a loss of innocence, and a corruption of human nature. The world became a place of chaos and struggle, where good and evil no longer were clear-cut, and humans became subject to sin, suffering, and death. Some deeper interpretations suggest that suffering, sin, and death weren't part of God's initial design, but were allowed to enter the world because of the gift of free will. Free will is crucial for love and relationship to be genuine, but it also comes with the risk of choosing against God's will. God gave humanity the freedom to choose, but with that freedom came the possibility of pain and loss when those choices went astray. So it's not that suffering, sin, and death were intended, but they became a reality because of the misuse of free will. And God's response to this allowed for a plan of redemption through Jesus Christ, which offers a way to restore the broken relationship and overcome the consequences of the fall. It's a story of how humanity's choice led to separation, but also how that separation wasn't the end, but the beginning of God's plan to bring us back into harmony with Him.
See, but you just said it's a plan. So either it was a plan or it wasn't a plan. It can't really be both, can it?
You're right to point that out. It's a bit of a tricky concept. The way it's often understood is that while suffering, sin, and death weren't part of God's original intention for creation, God, in His omniscience, knew that humanity would make that choice. So in a sense, it wasn't part of the initial plan, but God wasn't caught off guard. In Christian theology, this is often explained as God having a redemptive plan from the beginning, knowing that humanity would fall but already having a way to restore the relationship through Jesus Christ. It's not that God planned for the fall to happen, but He made a way to reconcile humanity back to Himself when it did. This doesn't mean the fall was the intended path, but that God's plan from the very beginning included redemption. It's a bit like writing a story where you know the character will make a wrong choice, but you already have a way for them to find their way back. So, it's not that the wrong turn was part of the plan, but that the plan includes a solution even for the mistakes that happen along the way. Does that help clarify it?
Yeah, except for God doesn't make mistakes. So,
You're right, God doesn't make mistakes, and that's a key point. The idea isn't that God made a mistake or planned for humanity to fall, but rather that God created humanity with free will, knowing that with that freedom comes the possibility of choosing against his will. The fall wasn't a mistake, but a choice made by humanity that had real consequences. And while the fall wasn't the perfect design or intention, God, in his omniscience, knew this would happen and had already set in motion a redemptive plan. The story, then, isn't about God reacting to a mistake, but about his eternal purpose of offering redemption and restoring the relationship between himself and humanity. In this view, the fall and the need for redemption aren't contradictions to God's perfect nature. They're a part of his greater plan to show love, grace, and to offer true reconciliation through Christ. It's less about mistakes and more about the journey of freedom, choice, and God's overarching redemptive love.
so what? Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna end this video because I want to start another one real quick, and I got another topic. So I want you to say goodbye in this video to the people. I want you to give me a title, and then we're gonna run with that.
All right, here's a quick closing for your video. All right, that wraps up today's discussion on the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, and the bigger picture of humanity's choice. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, the story isn't just about a fall, it's about the opportunity for redemption and connection with God. We'll be back with more, so stay tuned for the next one. For the title, how about the tree of life and knowledge, free will, choices, and redemption? Let me know what you think. Ready to dive into the next topic when you are.
Okay, I'm probably gonna tweak that title. It sounded pretty good, but I think I could do better. So this is just the beginning of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But I gotta go back. I gotta backtrack because there's something that needs to be said before this. So in the next video, that's what we're working on. I'll be back. Peace.